Buonasera a tutti. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to be invited to the fourth Toronto Conference on sustainable, transition and diverse visions. I'm sorry. I'm also grateful for the opportunity to attend this event, not only in the capacity as a representative from Vietnam, a country geographically far from southern European Mediterranean region, but also in the capacity of an alumnus who studied in this beautiful country, Italy, 24 years ago. So I would like to send to you my warmest greetings, my best congratulations, and my deepest sentiment. Ladies and gentlemen, I highly appreciate the organizers for their selection of the theme for this year's conference on national issues and also on global issues, as they are hot topics which draw great interest from all over the world. The global economy, indeed, is in transition, and many economies, including Vietnam, are also in transition. After a few decades of globalization boom, together with the science, technology, telecommunication, transportation advancement, we have witnessed many benefits of globalization process, which has brought about new looks for many countries. There has been no little number of countries successful in integration policy in making use of opportunities arising from the removal of tariff and non-tariff barriers, from free labor and capital flows, and from technology transfer. These countries have been quickly named in the list of developed countries or middle-income countries, and their people's living standard had been apparently improved. But there has also been no little of failed or at least unsuccessful countries in integration policy. They have been struggling with the consequences of open door policy. In these countries, costs for dealing with the crisis such as macro imbalance, social inequality, and also political instability are not small at all. Even those countries which have been seen as successful in integration process has also experienced times of failure, and the associated costs were also not small. The 1997-1998 Southeast Asian crisis is a typical example. Thanks to open-door policy during the 80s of the last century, these countries had attracted foreign investment to accelerate industrialization process and shift labor from agricultural sector with low productivity to industrial and service sectors with higher productivity. They were quickly dubbed as Asian tigers. Generous inflows of foreign capital investment, together with loosening monetary policy, had resulted in overheating economic development. To make use of benefit from open-door policy to meet growing domestic demand and to maintain economic growth, these countries easily allow businesses and banks to borrow short-term capital from the international market to finance domestic investment. Liberalization of the balance of capital and incentive of foreign financial investors to join security market further increased short-term capital investment in these countries. Inevitable formation of asset bubble, together with the large-scale mobilization of short-term foreign capital, were the sources of hidden risk, so that one day the bubbles burst, put the economy into crisis. On a global scale, globalization is also a catalyst that has engendered many problems we are suffering up to now because of interconnection and interdependence among economies in a globalization environment. Crisis from one country might be quickly spread to other countries and become a global issue. Another arising problem, when each country or region made use of globalization opportunity in their own way, has resulted in imbalances on a global scale. Application of export-led growth model has helped China and a number of other Asian countries increase foreign reserve and become financial investors in the international data market. Domestic demand was somehow neglected when export was given much priority. In the meantime, the US made use of globalization opportunities by enlisting financial resources from other countries to develop financial services on its own territory, while its aggregate demand is based primarily on domestic consumption. These very issues have brought about imbalances on a global scale, and as a result, the IMF and G20 have to call for coordinated actions today to achieve a strong, sustainable, and balanced economic growth. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to waste the time by leading you to an endless argument about the pros and cons of globalization. I only want to share my views that global economy is in transition, and Southeast Asian region and Asian region as a whole are also going through this vigorous process. Now, please allow me to speak a little bit about this region. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations was founded in 1967 with 5 members and extended to 10 members as of now. Located in the center of a dynamic development axis of the world economy, ASEAN had been unceasingly upgrading in terms of both economic size and political position in international fora. It will become an economic community at the end of 2015. With a population of 600 million, a GDP size of nearly $3 trillion, and with a high and dynamic growth rate, Asian Economic Community will become an important pillar and an engine of growth for Asia as well as for the world. AEC focuses on 4 objectives. 1, single market and production base. 2, competitive economic region. 3, equitable economic development. And 4, ASEAN's integration into the global economy. In addition to its inherent potentials, ASEAN also plays a role as a pillar in cooperation of ASEAN Plus, namely ASEAN, China, Japan, South Korea, and ASEAN Plus Plus, namely ASEAN, China, Japan, South Korea, India, Australia, and New Zealand. This region also plays an extremely important role in the world economy. Why so? Because, firstly, the region development will decide whether the 21st century will be named Asian century or not, and will therefore determine the overall global growth pace. According to a forecast by the Australia and New Zealand Banking Group, Asia 10, including China, India, Indonesia, Japan, Korea, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam, with a GDP size of nearly $17 trillion and a population of 3.3 billion in 2012, will share 50% of the global GDP by the year of 2050, and will share 50% of the global median income class. Secondly, this region also plays a decisive role to determine the success of the strong, sustainable, balanced economic growth program. ASEAN Plus and ASEAN Plus Plus are now also going through a vigorous transformation process. Many countries in ASEAN bloc and leading economies in the region, such as China, Japan, are carrying out strong reforms from economic structure to financial reform, from market structure to investment and export structures. I would like to share my views with you. With a strong reform, Asia won't be able to maintain a high and sustainable growth pace, and will no longer be an engine of global growth. And I also would like to say that this region won't be able to have a strong and high growth with the support from the rest of the world. Therefore, cooperation among regions is required, and thus reforms of this region and the promotion of its cooperation with the rest of the world must continue and continue in a stronger way. Ladies and gentlemen, I have talked about the global and regional economic issues. Now I would like to spend the rest of my speech to touch upon these issues from a national perspective, and I would like to talk about Vietnam, which can be seen as an example of reform and integration, with both successes and failures. After nearly 30 years of carrying out a dual reform policy, domestic restructuring, and open policy, Vietnam has been attaining impressive achievement, from a galloping inflation growth up to 180% per year during 1985-1988 period. Inflation has been tamed to one digit in the very early years of the 90s. From a stagnating economy during the 80s, Vietnam has become a dynamic economy with an average GDP growth of 7% during 1991-2012 period, which helped increase GDP per head from $86 in 1988 to 2,000 in 2013, and make Vietnam a middle income country. The ratio of poor families reduced from 58% in 1998 down to approximately 10% in 2013. The above-mentioned success was achieved thanks to an intensive and extensive reform associated with a structural transformation model. Vietnam was seen as a successful case in shifting its labor from agriculture sector with a low productivity to industrial and service sectors with higher productivity. Share of labor agricultural sector was reduced from more than 70% in 1990 to approximately 46% in 2013. To effectively transform economic structure, Vietnam has been carrying out a series of domestic reforms, including institutional reform, deregulation, and infrastructure enhancement. At the same time, an industrialization program was carried out in association with the open door policy. Industry and service were the two sectors that brought about growth momentum to the economy over the past decades. Though achieving encouraging successes over the past nearly 3 decades, Vietnam economy has been facing many challenges. Economic growth has been slowing down since 2009. Macroeconomics has been under a great pressure and has been experiencing imbalances. Inflation and public debt rose to a relatively high level. The economy appeared less competitive with low productivity. These weaknesses stemmed from both internal causes and external impacts. The old model-based economic development can no longer bring a strong enough dynamic to maintain economic growth. On the other hand, the economy has become vulnerable to external shocks. To avoid the middle income trap, Vietnam economy needs a new and more powerful momentum, and it also needs to build a stronger foundation. Having been aware of this, Vietnam has launched a restructuring plan titled Economic Restructuring associated with the renovation of growth model and with the improvement of quality, efficiency, and economic competitiveness. This reform program, different from the previous one initiated 3 decades ago, which relied on structural transformation, focus on in-depth and fundamental change. In parallel to domestic reform, Vietnam continues to implement open door policy and accelerate integration process. It has become an active member of ASEAN and ASEAN Plus experiences of Vietnam over the last 3 decades of development showed that the two issues of domestic reform and integration have very close reciprocal and causal relations. Ladies and gentlemen, from the above presentation, I would like to draw a number of conclusions as follows. Firstly, from an economic perspective, we are in a transformation process on national, regional, as well as global scales. Transformation doesn't mean a stopping point or a change of course. Rather, it's a buffering step in an unceasingly development process and is an irreversible global trend. Cooperation among nations and regions is an imperative goal for all countries for the sake of each nation and for the goal of creating a sustainable and balanced growth. Inter-region cooperation becomes more important at the very moment when almost the very economy of the advanced world has a domestic problem. Conventional instruments of government, such as fiscal and monetary policy, appear having no more room to move. With regard to fiscal policy, public debt is too high. With regard to monetary policy, interest rate is at nearly zero. Secondly, from the experiences of Vietnam, I would like to say that domestic reform and integration are a twin couple. High economic growth cannot be promoted without integration. Vice versa, integration opportunities cannot be seized without domestic reform and without strongly built-up platform. Otherwise, the cost will be extremely high. Thirdly, Vietnam, ASEAN, and East Asia regions are full potential partners of Italy, of Southern Europe, and Mediterranean in the decades to come. Opportunities for cooperation for the sake of mutual interest and improvement of living standards of both regions' people are ahead for leaders, businesses, and the community as a whole. In my opinion, East Asia keep changing, keep reforming, and therefore keep creating opportunities for themselves and for their partners. Last but not least, Vietnam, with a high potential, will be, no doubt, not only an excellent destination of investment, but also a good gateway leading to a huge market, namely Asian Economic Community, ASEAN Plus, and ASEAN Plus Plus. Once again, I would like to wish you good health, business, happiness, and success. Thanks a lot for your attention.